Hello, in this tutorial I'm going to show you how to deploy a Laravel application into a DigitalOcean server with Nginx and MySQL as the database. So let's get started. The first thing I'm going to show you is the application that I'm going to be deploying. It's a very simple, useless application. You just type a message here. It saves the string into the database and it fetches all the messages from the messages table. So the first thing we need to do is sign up to DigitalOcean or log in if we have an account. I'm gonna be leaving an affiliate link in the description that is gonna give you $100 to spend over a period of 60 days. Since I already have an account, I'm just gonna log in and okay, once you log in or create an account, we're gonna click on the create button up here and then in droplets. After that, we're gonna select marketplace and we're gonna search for LEMP, which means Linux, Nginx, MySQL, and PHP. So this is just an image that contains Nginx, MySQL, and PHP pre-installed, so we don't have to do that ourselves. And then I'm just gonna select the smallest server. You can select whichever makes more sense to you. And I'm gonna just select a random region. Here I'm gonna click on monitoring because the monitoring tools are better if you click on this check. Totally optional as well. For the authentication, you have two options. The first one is with SSH keys, which I use personally. If you don't have one added to your account, you can click this button and then follow the steps here and paste the key here, give it a name, and then add key. You can also skip that step and just create a root password. So if you want to do that as well, if you think it's easier, but I'm gonna just select the ones that I already have in my account. And here I'm just gonna change the hostname to one that makes more sense. So I'm gonna set it to tutorial, and no tags, default project, and that's it. Create droplet, and that now is gonna create our server. It's gonna take a little bit, so I'll come back when it finishes. Okay, so now that it finished, I'm gonna copy the IP address from here, and then I'm gonna go into a terminal, and I'm gonna SSH into the server. So it's just SSH root add and then the IP address of the server. Yes. So now what I'm gonna do is create a new user, just because it's bad practice to use the root user. So I'm gonna create a user and I'm gonna name it Cosme, just because that's my name. You can name it whatever you want. Then we need to type a password. So okay, and then I'm not gonna fill any of the other information. Now I'm gonna add the permissions to the user so we can use the sudo command. So usermod ag sudo cosme. After that we can log into that user with sudo dash and the name of the user, and we are in the user. Now we need to add our SSH key into our computer's SSH key into the user so we can SSH directly to this user. If I change to another terminal and try to log in with the user, it's not gonna let me. So I need to create a directory which is mkdir and then .ssh and then change mode 700 to the same directory, Then we're going to create a new file called authorized keys. I'm going to use Vim, but you can use Nano if you don't know how to use Vim, because it's a little more straightforward. So here in this file, we're going to paste our computer's SSH key. So just going to go into the computer's terminal and then cat SSH ID. There's a poof. And then I'm gonna copy this and I'm gonna paste it here and then save and exit. And now if we try to SSH with the user, we should be able to. Yes. And then I'm just gonna exit this terminal since I don't need it anymore. We're already logged in this other terminal. Okay, now we need to configure the firewall. To that we're gonna do sudo fw allow nginx HTTP. Now we can connect to the Nginx server from the internet. The firewall will allow those ports to be open to the public. Now we're going to run the MySQL secure installation script. Okay, this validate password question is just to make if you want the password to follow certain rules like 8 characters, numeric characters, and that stuff. I don't need it, so I'm gonna say no, and I'm gonna type the new root password. For all the other questions, I'm gonna just leave the default. Now I'm gonna log into MySQL and create the database and a user for the application. So I'm gonna do sudo MySQL uroot using password. And here I'm gonna create the user first. So create user. I'm gonna name it app at localhost. You can name it wherever you want. Just change this part, and then identify it by, and then a password. I'm gonna just tutorial pass. This should be a password, a secure password. And then I'm gonna hit enter. We also need to do another similar command with alter, and then I'm gonna copy this, and then we're gonna change with, and then here MySQL native password, just because some MySQL clients use this protocol. I don't know what it's called, to log into the MySQL server. So if we for some reason need to log from a remote environment, we can do this without problems. Okay, so now I'm gonna create the database. Create database. I'm gonna name it Laravel, but you can name it whatever you want. Just make sure to use the same name on the AM file that I'm gonna be showing you in a little bit. And now we need to give our app user permissions to read and write to that database. So I'm gonna give grant all on Laravel that do app at localhost, and that's it. I'm gonna leave in the description below all these queries and the bash commands, so you can just copy them and modify them accordingly, and so it'll be easy for you to follow this tutorial. So now I'm gonna flush the privileges. And that's it. I'm just gonna exit MySQL. After that, we need to install the PHP extensions that Laravel uses. First we need to update the system. So sudo apt update. Okay, so now that it's finished, we can install the extension. So sudo apt install. And then we're gonna install three extensions, which is php-bcmath, and then php-mbstring, php-xml. Then yes. Okay, so now it finished. So everything should be okay. Now we will continue to install Composer. Before we install Composer though, we need to install the unzip package. So sudo apt install unzip. Okay, so the package is installed now. Now we're gonna download Composer with this command, and it's just getting the Composer installed and then running it with PHP. So okay, so it says that it was installed to the home directory, which is this one. What I'm gonna do is move this file to the bin directory so we can access it globally. Sudo nv composer to user local bin composer, and now we can use composer v, and we have Composer installed. So the next thing we need to do is clone our application. I'm gonna clone it from GitHub. I have this repository with the application I showed you at the beginning. So I'm just gonna make sure this HTTPS selected here and then copy. If you have a private repo, it's gonna ask you for the password and email when you clone the repo. So first I'm gonna cd into the var www, and then here I'm gonna do git clone and then paste the URL that I copied from the repo. This is saying that I don't have the permissions to create a directory, so I'm gonna change this directory owner to my user. So sudo change own, and then colon, then this, and that should be it. Now if I clone the repository, everything is fine. So I'm gonna cd into the repository, and now here we have all the files. So what we're gonna do next is install the Composer packages. So Composer install. Okay, now that it finished installing the packages, we're gonna move into creating the M file. So what we're gonna do is copy the example M file, and then we're gonna generate the key. This is used for passwords and stuff like that, so it's needed. And then I'm gonna open the M file, but I'm gonna use Vim again. If you don't know how to use Vim, just use Nano instead. So I'm gonna use vim.env. Here I'm gonna change a couple of things. So the first one is I'm gonna change the environment to production. And then here we have the app key that you shouldn't be making public. I'm not gonna use this application, so it's fine for me, but never share this key. And then I'm gonna send this to false, since it's production, we shouldn't be in debug mode. Then this, we need to change it to either the host name or the IP address. If you don't have a host name, just use the IP address like I'm gonna do. I'm gonna copy the IP address from here and then paste it here. So that should be fine. And then here we need to change the database name, the username, and the password. The database name is the same as the one I created, so I'm not going to change it. But if you created one with a different name, just change it here. Then the username was app for me, and the password was tutorial app. No, tutorial pass. Tutorial pass. So I'm just gonna save and quit, and I'm gonna run the migrations now. So I'm gonna do php artisan migrate, and then since we are in a production environment, I'm gonna pass the force flag. So now all the migrations were run successfully, so that means our tables were created. And let's go into the next step, which is configuring Nginx. So we need to create a new file in etc Nginx sites available, and then here you should create that with whichever file name makes more sense. I'm gonna set it to tutorial. And here I'm gonna paste the configuration that I already have. I'm gonna leave it in the description below so you can copy it as well. Okay, so this is the file that I pasted here. So the first thing you need to change is this, which is the IP address. You should set the IP address for your server, and then the path to the public folder. This should be the name of the folder that was created when you clone the repo. So this is mine. Just change that, and then we change and quit that file. We save it, and now we need to create a symbolic link to the sites enable folder. So I'm gonna do sudo symbolic link to etc Nginx sites available tutorial, and then I'm gonna create the link to etc Nginx sites enable tutorial, and we're gonna test the configuration with Nginx-t, and everything looks fine. So now we should need to restart Nginx. So sudo service Nginx restart. Okay, so the last thing we need to do is we need to change the owner of the storage folder and the bootstrap cache folder. So to that we just do sudo change own -r, and then we set the new user, which is the user that Nginx uses. And then we just point to our storage folder, and we do the same for our bootstrap cache folder. And now that we have everything set up, we should be able to visit our IP address, and we should see the application that I showed you at the beginning. Let's see if it works. And here it is. If I type a message, you see that it gets saved into the database and is retrieved and showed to the user. So that's it for this video. Thank you for watching, and hope you have a great day.